Good evening, I'm John Batchelor. This is the John Batchelor Show. The Iowa presidential caucus results are coming in even as I speak. And my panels are here for these next minutes until we get the final results from Iowa for the Democrats and the Republicans voting tonight. There are surprising results so far with partial votes in, but a sizable portion. Nearly 80% for the Democrats and more than 60% for the Republicans. And introducing us to the numbers we have right now, I'm very pleased. Here with me in studio is the political director of WABC, my flagship and affiliate in New York City, Rita Cosby. Rita, it's a pleasure to welcome you at the beginning of the presidential season for these results, and it's wonderful to have you here in studio. What can you tell us about the evening so far? Good evening, Rita.
Good evening. Well, some surprising results, as you talked about. John, first, let's get to the Democratic side, and then, of course, the biggie on the Republican side. On the Democratic side, as of now, 63% of the polling precincts are in Iowa. Hillary Clinton has a decent lead, 51%, 49. Again, still too close to call, but based on some of the ones that are out, she is doing quite well. Some of the early polling showing that there are not as many new voters coming in, and that may have helped Bernie Sanders. Not as many young people as there were when Barack Obama ran. So that, again, will help Hillary Clinton. On the Republican side, big surprise, John. First of all, Ted Cruz leading at this point, 75% of the polling precincts and 28% of the vote. Donald Trump, 25%, and in a very close number 3, Marco Rubio, the junior Florida senator, 22%, and yet there are still a lot of these key areas where there's expected to be significant Rubio support that have yet to come in. So this could be a tremendously great night for Marco Rubio.
Earlier, we had CBS entrance polling of those who were attending the caucuses, and the Republicans surprised me in that the number one concern was government spending, the number 2 concern was the economy, the number 3 concern was terrorism, and way down at the bottom, 13%, was immigration, an issue that was featured in the businessman from New York's campaign these many months. Ted Cruz leading sizably, and I go now to Iowa. David Drucker of the Washington Examiner, he's reporting from Des Moines. David, the surprise to me right now, Ted Cruz doing very well, but we knew that he had a first-rate organization. Marco Rubio looks to be closing on Trump, and I'm told that could tighten more in the evening. What can you tell us, David? Good evening to you.
Good evening, and they're about to report another caucus here in Clyde, a suburb of Des Moines. Let's see if Rubio wins this one. He just won the other one. And that is part of the story tonight, is Rubio so far. Here we go. And he wins another one. So there you go. 2 big caucuses where Rubio spoke to lead off the night, Trump spoke to lead off the night, Santorum spoke to lead off the night, and Ben Carson spoke to lead off the night. So it's another big win for Rubio here, and that there are 2 stories coming out of Iowa. Ted Cruz's ground game has really done a job, because the conventional wisdom, we all spouted it, was if turnout gets above 140,000, he's doomed and Trump wins. Turnout might get 170,000, and Cruz is going to win. He deserves a lot of credit. He is a formidable candidate. Secondly, as we've been discussing, Rubio, not only did he overperform, but if these numbers hold, and especially if they improve, he didn't just beat expectations. He shattered them and showed that he's a force to be reckoned with, especially considering he's weathered nearly $30 million in ads in the last 8 weeks, more than any other candidate running for president. It is a testament to his electoral possibilities going forward.
David Drucker's in Des Moines, and we're going to let him scoot away because he's going over to the Rubio headquarters, and I hope to catch him in another hour. David, thank you very much for this report. We go to John Fund, who's watching this very carefully, but I want to return to Thursday night last week. Rita, this is a story that you appreciate. Mr. Fund was on the phone with me after we did our report. This is following the Republican debate. And John says to me, laughingly, because he was highly entertained at the moment, tonight is peak Trump. He told me this is after Mr. Trump did not appear at the Iowa debate. John Fund, what did you mean then? What do you see now about peak Trump? Good evening to you, John.
Well, John, 2/3 of Iowa Republican caucus goers said they watched that debate on Thursday that Donald Trump boycotted. And by 39-14, they were less likely to vote for him for having dissed the Iowa electorate. And I think this will come back to haunt Donald Trump tonight. I'm looking at Johnson County, which is Iowa City, and I'm looking at Polk County, which is Des Moines. Between a fifth and a quarter of the vote is still out there. In both counties, Marco Rubio is solidly beating Donald Trump. And as that vote comes in, I think Rubio will start to close on Trump.
Thaddeus McCotter, WJR, the great voice of the Great Lakes, a recovering politician, is here. Thaddeus, do you have a question for Mr. Fund? Or Rita Cosby has numbers here to give you as well. Good evening to you, Thaddeus.
Good evening, John. Good evening, Mr. Fund. Good evening, Rita.
Good evening.
My question for either one of you would be, we had heard so much that the increased turnout would help Mr. Trump, although as Mr. Fund and Mr. Drucker pointed out, the absence of Trump organization on the ground was not going to get him where he wanted to go. Are we seeing indications of who these new voters were, and were they, it seems like they might very well have been inclined to support Mr. Rubio?
Well, I think that is to your point. You hit it right on the head. There was a new exit poll that just came in a few minutes ago, and of the undecideds, and there was a huge chunk of undecideds, some of the things we were reporting here, anywhere from 35 to 45% of people undecided as of this morning. And some of the new results are showing 35% of the caucus goers undecided went to Rubio, 29% to Cruz, 15% to Trump. And Trump was expecting a lot more of those undecided going to him. I don't think anybody expected a huge chunk going to Rubio. So it seems like he won over. We were just talking about the $30 million that he has spent. He has been putting half-hour commercials on Iowa TV constantly for the last 24, 48 hours, a huge amount of money. And it looks like it's paid off because he has turned the voters in the last 24, 48 hours.
Mr. Fund, do you have a comment?
Yes, I believe that Rubio comes out of this with an enormous opportunity to consolidate the, quote, establishment support, unquote, in New Hampshire. A great irony given that he was a Tea Party candidate scorned by the establishment when he first ran for the Senate. Trump, of course, now has all kinds of explaining to do because the dreaded five-letter word is following him, and we all know it begins with L and ends with R. And as for Cruz has proven that he can put together an organization that's non-pareil, and Cruz now is going to try to close on Trump in New Hampshire, where Trump still has a big lead.
Thaddeus, a detail here, because you're a recovering politician now. Mm-hmm. This is a challenge for all three to explain this to the American people. How does Marco Rubio approach this? Because I agree that he's the surprise of the evening, given how the polls had him down in the teens these last months. How does he present himself in the morning on the TV shows?
Well, first, I'm disappointed to know that Mr. Trump will be called a lemur. But for Mr. Rubio, I think as I've said before in different places, and as well as on your show, and I think it's been echoed by John and David. Rita can disagree or not, but Mr. Rubio represents the future-oriented Republican Party. He's not necessarily, as Mr. Fund has pointed out, he was a Tea Partier, he can be embraced by the establishment, but he's offering, I think, both he embodies and he articulates a new path for the Republican Party.
Let's continue that conversation, Thaddeus, when we come back. Thaddeus McCotter, WJR, the great voice of the Great Lakes. John Fund of the National Review Online. Rita Cosby, the political director of WABC, who has a report to give to the people of New York. So,
I do.
She will soon enough. I'm John Batchelor. More on the Iowa caucus for the next hours. This is the John Batchelor Show.